So Edgerunners came out and everybody is playing Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, you heard me. It's the greatest redemption arc of all time. So you know what? I decided to sit down and give Cyberpunk 2077 another chance. So like I said, if you have been paying attention to anything related to video games, you'll know that Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the anime, came out, and it has caused people to pick up Cyberpunk 2077 again. And since the first time I've played it, the developers have put a lot of time into smoothing out the game, into making it a better experience. So I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to give it another chance. And I played through the game again from scratch, started all over and experienced it again. And I can tell you something. It's all right. Yes, the hottest take in the world. It's neither shit nor the best thing anyone's ever seen. It's not No Man's Sky redemption arc. It's just fine. The game is exactly as it should have been when it first came out, or close to it. Don't get me wrong, when people say they fixed a lot of the glitches, what they mean is they've reduced the number of glitches. I have still very much run into a lot of issues, but they're just not game breaking or absolutely immersion breaking. I've run into an NPC T-posing. I've run into loading into an area and having a car like hop across the street. I've had my motorcycle just start spasming out in the middle of me driving it, launching me into the sidewalk, killing a pedestrian. And those are funny and weird things and definitely like not great, but they're way better than they used to be, where it was like absolutely just a broken piece of shit game. But does that make it the greatest redemption arc ever? No. Yes, I'm sorry. This is my super hot take. The game is just not amazing. It's fine. But why is that? Well, there's two real things: the way the story is told and the way the gameplay is. I'm going to start with the gameplay, okay? Because don't get me wrong, I actually do like the gameplay for what it is. I ran around with gorilla arms punching people to death, and that was like super fun. It's funny to see these like guys in heavy armor shooting at you and you just beat the crap out of them with your fists. But like when I think of Cyberpunk, if I think of like the tabletop game Cyberpunk, what I don't think of is like a GTA clone. I think of being like an epic solo, going on really big heists, you know, planning with a team, with a crew. I think things like Shadowrun. If you don't know Shadowrun, Shadowrun is like someone took Cyberpunk and slammed a D&D handbook on top of it. It's essentially the same thing. It's that cyber future, but also magic exists. And in the Shadowrun game, you actually do plan out heists and then go on these missions and do them. And that's really cool. And when I think of Cyberpunk lore, gameplay, the tabletop game, whatever, that's what I think of. And if you remember from Edgerunners, that's kind of the beginning of Edgerunners, right? It's like you get this introduction, then you get some heists. Those are really cool. And then the story goes on from there. And that's my favorite part of Cyberpunk, but you're not doing that in 2077. Now, don't get me wrong. I know in some of the gigs, you sneak into places in the side jobs, you do stuff, you kidnap people, stuff like that. You do it, but it's not to the depth or the extent that I feel like would be really cool if they did. What that really means when you actually look at it is that Cyberpunk doesn't feel like a Cyberpunk game. It feels like Grand Theft Auto with a Cyberpunk paint over it. Yeah, Grand Theft Auto doesn't have mantis blades or anything to that effect, but it's essentially very similar. I feel like I'm playing Vice City or something, just in the future, when I play Cyberpunk 2077. So for me, it's just kind of one of those things where when you tell me cool future, I kind of feel like, Saints Row. Now, again, I'm not trying to say that it's actually bad. That's not what I'm saying, because I do think the implant system is pretty cool. I think the different builds you can do is pretty fun. I wish there was more. I wish that there was more trees, more ways to customize your character, but I do like it. And I like that you can do different builds and they're all good. You know, they're all good. But this idea of just like leveling up and stats on equipment like it's an RPG, but then playing like it's Grand Theft Auto, I don't know, man. It just isn't quite the Cyberpunk that I'm looking for. So it ends up mechanically being a pretty, a slightly above average game. Good enough, you can enjoy it. But that's the thing. I could be fine with that. But then we get into the story. Now, I know everyone's going to be so mad at me about this, but Cyberpunk's story, it's fine. It's just fine. They make a lot of mistakes in the storytelling. One of the biggest things to me is actually the intro. And I'm sure people are going to see what I'm talking about here. You have these life paths, and it seems like they're really important. Like being a corpo, a street kid, or a nomad is going to really change the game. But it doesn't. It changes your intro, and it changes some dialogue options at later points in the game that don't have any consequences. I've played through all three, and I would say Nomad is the coolest one. Corpo has the best dialogue later in the game, but only Street Kid actually makes sense. It feels like what they did was they made Street Kid, and then they made a montage to match Street Kid to do the time skip, and then they just decided to cut and paste that montage to all three intros. It makes a little bit of sense still for Nomad, but it makes almost no sense for Corpo. Like, sure, you've known Jackie for a long time, so maybe he invites you into your home, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know, man. It felt jarring because I chose Corpo before all the others when I played for the first time, and I just kind of felt like taken aback. But hey, we're going to ignore that. Fine. The intros don't really matter because they're trying to get you into the main game and have you all start from the same place. Fine. So then we go on these first missions for Dex, and those are fun. I really like the one with the flathead, getting the flathead from the Maelstrom. I think that's a really cool mission. That's pretty fun. I like the way that you can handle it different ways with you can actually keep the money, you can give it to them. You know, when you get Militech's help, you can just not get Militech's help at all. You can just pay for it out of your own pocket. Those are some pretty cool options. I like that agency. And then you do like the main mission, right? And we have all the bad shit go down, you know, all the stuff in Konpeki Plaza. And we end up, you know, in this motel with Dex, and he's like, everything's gone to shit. And you're like, oh man, everything has gone to shit. I got this chip in my neck. Oh no, what are we gonna do? And then Dex betrays you.
Can't risk it, V.
And I was so mad. I was so mad the first time I experienced that he would betray us. And I said, I actually had my character say, I'm going to fucking kill you.
I'll fucking kill you!
And I knew I wasn't going to die, obviously, because it's the intro to the game. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to track down Dex and kill him. I can't wait. This is my big motivation. And you go through this cool segment where you play as Johnny Silverhand, which is really cool, by the way. Like, really cool. The Johnny Silverhand is very cool. The way he reloads his gun, just, you know, like doing the spin reload, the way he's just like popping people, it's really cool. And then you come back to real life and you're like, all right, we're going to get back up. We're going to go hunt down Dex and kill him. And then Takamura shoots him in the head. I have never had the wind taken out of my sails so quickly by a game, because all my motivation that the game had just established, all this buildup, the loss of Jackie, all of these things, and the guy I just really wanted to fuck over gets shot by someone else. Thanks. I'm sure the defenders will come out and say that that was fine, but to me, it was a huge misstep, because now I'm like, I've instantly lost motivation. But now Takamura's dragging my body and ninjas are coming after us and we gotta shoot him, but the shooting doesn't really matter. You know, I replayed through that segment a few times and you can just like not shoot and nothing happens. That's pretty bad. And then we're dumped into the world and we're told, hey, you got like 3 weeks to live. Good luck. Well, up till now, I had like 3 hours of we're gonna, make our way in the world. And now you're telling me, fuck making your way in the world, dude. You're actually not going anywhere because you're gonna be dead. You're gonna be Keanu Reeves soon, kid. Enjoy. I mean, admittedly, that wouldn't be the worst fate, becoming Keanu Reeves, just saying. But like, I don't know. To me, it made it really hard to feel like, oh, well, I want to go out and become rich. Like, why would I want to become rich? Why would I want to do anything? I am being told that it is inevitable that I will just become Keanu Reeves painfully. And that's my only option, is to do that or shoot myself in the head. Not very motivating. And I do know that down the line, the goal of the game is to like do other things before you go, or maybe even try to find a solution to your problem. But I find that I'm not motivated by that at all. So that's like kind of the problem with the story. And it also is something that I think that they make a mistake about when they tell the story, because the story of Edge Runners and Cyberpunk paints Night City as this place where like everyone dies at the age of 18 unless you're like the CEO of a company. But like, if you actually read the books, if you actually look into the lore, that's not true. Some people have that issue, but most people just live their life. And I know overtly they say that's what legends do. Legends burn out in a blaze of glory, but plenty of them live to retire. You know, plenty of them live on for a long time. And what I feel like happens is that they've tried so hard to capture this like depressing, you know, future where this like hyper capitalistic horror future where everything is sad, that they've missed some of the things that make cyberpunk. Like, for example, that in the books, the hardest part about surviving a wound is getting to the hospital. Once you're at the hospital, it's super cheap for them to just like regrow any body parts. In the books, you know, the tabletop game, you don't swap out your arm for a cybernetic because someone cut it off. You swap it out for a cybernetic because you want the cybernetic. It's not expensive to regrow limbs. And so these ideas that like, oh, if you can't get help, you know, if you don't have money, then you're screwed, is kind of like a very different take on the setting, which I think doesn't capture the magic of what makes Cyberpunk interesting. In Cyberpunk Red, there is a gang that is a group of people who all get surgery to look like a celebrity, and they call themselves, I think, the Kennedys or something like that. That's freaking hilarious. And we don't capture that at all. Instead, we just get these like very serious, you know, edging on cyber psycho type characters like the Maelstrom, or these stereotypes like the Valentinos or the Tiger Claws. And I find that to be a kind of like, that's what you expect from GTA. You know, all the gangs in GTA are stereotypes, so same difference, right? So what's my point with all this? Is it to just say that Cyberpunk's a really bad game? No. And I know plenty of people are going to disagree. I can see the dislikes now. Thanks, YouTube, for saying dislikes don't exist anymore. Seeing all these threads, seeing all these posts like Cyberpunk 2077 is the greatest redemption arc of all time, when in reality, it's not. It's fine. I would say if I had to give it a score, it's like a 7 out of 10. It's good. I'd play it. You should play it. It's fun. But is it the greatest redemption arc of all time? Is it the greatest game of all time? I don't think so. Actually, it's just fine. So in conclusion, if you like Cyberpunk 2077, that's fine. If you liked Edge Runners, I agree. It was an amazing anime. Loved it. Hope there's a season 2. Probably hard to do a season 2 considering what happened, but I hope so. And I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying the game. I enjoyed my playthrough again. I'm glad that they're fixing it. I'm glad that they're going to be fixing it more, but the game should have been this way when it came out, and fixing it later doesn't make up for it, you know? And it's not the greatest redemption arc of all time. The game is fine, but that's about it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.